So, first of all, wow. I didn't expect the response to doing a video like this, but I'm also really happy with it. So, maybe I'll do more of these in the future? Without further ado, welcome to Liam's Foreign Theme Q&A. NSB463 asks, any chance of seeing you cover something from the Nordic countries? Does Wales count as foreign? If so, any chance of you covering something small and associated with Slate? And thoughts and opinions on New Zealand's theme? Any chance of those getting covered? Nordic's theme, I can't really say I know all that much aside from a smidge about Finland, but I wouldn't rule out Sweden, Norway, or Finland as future topics. Wales does count, although if I cover Welsh theme, it'll most certainly be the South African stuff on the Welsh Highland. And I love New Zealand's theme, specifically the AB class, though the locomotive from there most likely to get a video at least soon would be the K88. If you know the story, you know why. If you don't, you're in for a good story. Sir Liv asks, any thoughts on Japanese theme? Do you consider it foreign enough to warrant coverage on the channel someday? Japanese theme is amazing, and I find it neat that JGR and later JNR didn't really fiddle with some of the more advanced concepts that other countries did, and the function over form aesthetic. A couple Japanese locomotives are on the list for future videos, although I will say the D51 is not one of them. They're impressive machines, but there are other types to discuss, such as some of the 260 variety. London 8F asks, would you do a video on the Indian narrow gauge railways? Yes. In fact, after the hiatus, the first video will be one of the classes of Indian narrow gauge locomotive. And going forward, I'd like to cover nearly all the classes, at least to the best of my ability. I actually have a side project writing a fiction story on an Indian narrow gauge branch line featuring the ZP class engines. Before anyone asks, though, I probably won't cover the ZPs because while I love them, there are just barely any photos of them. MBTA 1000 asks, do you think there's enough traction to warrant covering more Soviet/Russian steam locomotives? Yes! I found out recently beyond the O-class engines there isn't really much in terms of videos about Soviet steam, so at the least I'd like to make a video on the Su-262s and their successors, the P-36, or maybe an essay on Russian passenger steam beyond the PR streamliners that they made. Yappenheimer asks, how do you learn about these quirky and interesting foreign steam locomotives? Okay, this might be a bit of a long one, but I'll try to simplify. For one, thank you Michael Palin, and also Great Railway Journeys, as his travel programs in the Great Railway Journeys episode showed me a world beyond the USA. The other big one, and I know we've all been there, is family members and friends buying me those big tabletop books with locomotive photos from around the world, and me getting curious and starting to research. The answer now is buying way too many books about way too many foreign railroads. PC Perhaps asks, if you brought a foreign S118 back to the US and put it on tour, what's the first livery you're painting it in? Tough one. Obvious choice is RSR green boiler jacket and big tender font, but East African maroon or some flair of the Indian Railways are good contenders. I think I'd go with a posh Indian Railways look, maybe a little bit of painted brass here, maybe a little bit of smoke box paint here. We'll have to see. I would like to own an S118. Trumac 808 asks, I understand the entire point of this channel is to cover foreign railroad motive power that is considered niche and obscure by the general fan community. But are there any locomotives that you've covered so far that even you might consider to be overrated within their sphere of interest? And if so, which ones? Very good question. Admittedly a bit of a difficult answer too. I'd have to say it's two engines, those being the USATC S160 and the Indian Railways WP. The S160 I think purely because there were so many and they're probably the best known export, quote unquote. The WPs I think is because there is a big sense of pride with them in India, which is completely understandable. So I wouldn't say they're particularly overrated, but they are talked about a lot. Overall, I think my answer is the S160. Monochrome C asks, from your research, what impact, if any, do you think the export market as a whole influenced the building or operation of foreign railways? I'd say it truly depended on the system and the operating conditions. The example I think of is Peru's Central Railway up through the Andes Mountains, which while built by an American was a completely British venture. However, when traffic started increasing in the 1920s, they started using American-style block signals and traffic control because it was more efficient to get trains up and down the mountain versus using the tried-and-true token system. So you had a British system with some American engines, but mostly British runs, running to British rules but with American signaling and dispatching. Generally, if given the option to quote-unquote break free from one supplier, a railway would, especially if they made a better product. That D59 lad Larry asks, hi Liam, love your vids, and congrats on the 1,000 subs. Thank you. I have some questions for you in that case. Number 1, would you be interested in going over some of the locomotives that Japan built for their railways during their rule over Korea and Manchuria? 2, thoughts on Cuban steam? And 3, if you had a chance to buy either an SY, QJ, or JS, which would you choose? Yes, I would like to cover locomotives from these railways, although they fall into a category of harder to find footage and photos, so we will have to see going forward. Cuba is both one of my favorite and one of my gateway drugs for exports theme, and I will eventually do a video on the Minez sugar fleet. Hard tie between a QJ and an SY with smoke deflectors off a QJ. A couple got this in industrial service as kind of a posh thing. It's an eccentric look, but I'm an eccentric person. Asish Sexana 196.2, I hope I got that right, asks, if you were given a time machine and one chance to use it to go back and witness an event in the history of the global rail industry, what event would that be? So this is going to be a weird one, and is purely for one reason I will explain, but as of writing, I'd like to see how the railway was involved in the Bhopal gas leak evacuations. I recently watched The Railwaymen on Netflix, which is a dramatization of the railway's roles, and while I do recommend it, it's definitely dramatized. I'd love to see what actually happened without all the Hollywood drama, you know? And help out in any capacity I could. Remember, friends, big business is not your friend. Trist's channel, 5611, asks, kind of a basic question, but what got you interested in foreign railroads in the first place? Didn't you have enough mutant locomotives on the SP and Wobbly to satiate you? Thanks, Tristan. Beyond Michael Palin and BBC-funded documentaries, I fully blame the book The World Encyclopedia of Locomotives by Colin Garrett. It covers just about all the countries I've come to find interesting and their motive power, so if you're gonna blame anybody, blame Colin Garrett. Midkits asks, if you were given a chance at the throttle of any 3 foreign steam locomotives, which would they be? Oh, this is a tough one. Number 1 is obviously Tweed, the 1873 Sharp Stewart 040 built to run in India that proceeded to run in India into the 1990s. And that if this channel ever gets enough traction, I'd love to go and find, since apparently it's sitting abandoned at the mill she last worked at, or at least that's what I saw of the last photo. Maybe some of my Indian followers could update me on this one. Number 2 is the G&Q's Moguls. Probably number 11, because, they're the reason I like foreign steam. If it wasn't for G&Q painting their 260s red, I don't think I'd like foreign steam. Number 3 would be one of the Indian Railways YPs. They're one of my favorite 462 types full stop, and I'd love to see what turn of speed they can do on the meter gauge. Eggs Benedict Studios asks, out of all the paintings you did, which is your favorite? What extinct locomotive would you wish to have at least one surviving member? What type of songs do you listen to? So I'm assuming you mean The Little Art of Me, which they're actually made by my last question asker, Midkits. She's a close friend of mine, does amazing art, and also streams. Check her out. My favorite one is probably the Think Thonk emoji, because it honestly reflects me researching these topics. Going with foreign here, it would definitely be the 262s provided to the Sudan government railways. Beautiful 1920s designs, but all were broken up for parts by the 70s. Or the 80s? Something like that. Musically, I'm a 60s, 70s rock kind of guy. I'm actually listening to the Byrds as I type this up. Fernando Marquez 5166 asks, which diesel, electric, and steam locomotives from Brazil are your favorites? So I admit I haven't looked into Brazil as much as some other South American countries, but I still have favorites from there. Diesels are the re-gauge tunnel motors, because at heart I will always be an SP foamer. Steam is the São Jose Sugar Mills 010 number 50, just a cool looking locomotive. And electric is the V8s, because that's the best name ever, and they also have beautiful styling. Thanks to everyone who asked a question or 3. The 1000 sub video has been delayed a bit, so I thought I'd do something on top of it. Maybe I'll do another when we hit another milestone. Thank you for watching.